Okay, YouTubers, if you guys recall, or if you go back into my video history, you'll find this was what I originally thought was a Craigslist score. Found this transmission on the local Craigslist in the Kansas City area. Was listed as a 0 miles, fresh rebuild. We looked at it as best we could, looked at all the seals, checked the fluid. Everything would have indicated externally a fresh rebuilt transmission. Thank you to the viewers who urged me to pull the pan and just kind of verify that it was a 0 miles transmission. Lo and behold, and again, if you go back into my video history, you'll see where I pulled the pan on this transmission. And no sir, no ma'am, no way, no how was this thing overhauled anytime in the recent past. So for fear of putting in a worn out transmission that could have issues, I have opted to go through this transmission, rebuild it up to specifications to handle even turbo power. This is how you go about picking up a transmission when you're 50 years old and you have 1.5 arms at work. Normally, as a young man, I would have just picked that thing up and set it on this little homemade table that I came up with. Because here again, I'm stuck in a garage that doesn't have the counter space that my old shop used to have. So I basically got some wood that was discarded and made a makeshift sawhorse table, covered it in cardboard, and that's going to be my disassembly table and or kind of lay everything out table where I can keep everything organized. There's not near as much to a Turbo 400 as you originally thought. So just take a deep breath, tear into one of these things, and become familiar with it. Because by the time you go through pulling 1 or 2 of these apart, or just buy one of them and practice pulling it apart and putting it back together, it's one of those things that once you've done it, you'll just slap yourself in the head for not doing it a long time ago. So stay tuned. Let me get this thing over on the bench. Alright, got her up on the table, got her wrestled around, checked the integrity of my homemade table. It seems pretty sturdy. First thing I've noticed is, even though I've already taken the pan off of this transmission, and I thought that I had drained the fluid out of it, just residual transmission fluid from those clutches has already, put quite a bit of fluid in the pan. But what I want to do first is get stuff off like this modulator valve that can break while I'm manipulating this thing around, because you don't want this thing to get broken while you're working on it. Nobody wants to see that. Up inside of here, there's actually a modulator valve. See, this is things you learn by watching YouTube videos, because I've changed several of these over my lifetime on transmissions and cars and whatnot. Who would have known there's actually a modulator valve right there. Now, see, in the videos I've seen, that's supposed to come out, I thought, but it sure don't act like it wants to come out. So I'm going to leave it, because there could be something inside the case that has to be removed before it can come out. But just remember, there is a modulator actual valve inside of here. Don't forget. Also, I would like to take off my AN fittings that I put on here so that they don't get broken or damaged, get the threads damaged or anything like that while I'm rolling this thing around getting it rebuilt. Now, these are specific threads. You will have to go online and kind of look that up on your own. these transmission housings have a specific thread pattern and pitch, but these things seal with one of those what do you call it, like a brass, I don't know if it's brass or copper crush washer, kind of like a brake line fitting. This was more than likely like a Renegade brand fitting, so it may not be the most accurate, but basically just screws up in there and seals with that sealing crush washer. That way you can do, I wanted to do the -6 lines, because originally I wanted to mount a cooler underneath the vehicle that had a little cooling fan on it, so I didn't have to run the cooling lines all the way to the front. As far as I know from the videos, we can go ahead and pull the governor cover off. This is a 1971 transmission. We're gonna have to be assuming now there's not a bunch of crud built up in the governor cover, which is a good sign, because sometimes this will be another thing. See, there's another good indicator to the condition of the transmission. This gear on your governor should be squared off and sharp. If the center of this is eroded like a trough, they call that apple coring, and that gear would have to be replaced. So this is extremely clean. It's not worn. That's a good sign. So maybe if it was rebuilt whenever, they either replaced it or it had a good service life because it's in good shape. Just real quick, I wanted to add in this governor assembly is free. All the weights are moving freely. None of the internal springs are broken. And you can tell that the governor weights have never been modified to select a higher than factory shift, automatic shift at wide open throttle, because these little pins that hold it together are flat on the ends. That shows it's factory, because once you knock or cut those off and take those pins out to modify your weights to raise your wide open automatic shift points, you replace it with nails and you just barely bend it over to keep it together. So just a little quick tip. I'm going to go ahead and pull the tail shaft housing off. I did finally kill my Harbor Freight cordless screwdriver this weekend. So look for me to do some shopping to get a better quality. I'd really like to get some of the Miller, those red. I'd like to get one of them little, is it ½ or not ½ inch, ½ or 3/8 angled drivers like Sloppy Mechanics uses. And I'd like to get a better drill and upgrade my impact driver as well. So let me bust this thing loose real quick with a dead blow. Didn't even hurt the gasket. Looks like there's a little bit of wear on the tail shaft, on your housing bearing. If you have issues with, like, if you were trying to run a drive shaft that was too short, or you had an issue where you had a vibration in your drive line, sometimes it's this tail shaft housing bushing. And especially if it's ever been run with an out of balance drive shaft or a drive shaft that's too short, it'll eat this bushing up really fast, and it causes it to have a lot of play, lateral play. And you can have a shop, or you can, if you have a press, replace that bushing and tighten it back up again. Something to think about. All right, gonna zip the pan off. Yes, I'm expecting a big mess. Even though I drained this thing before. No, these bolts were not tight. I just snugged them up from when I did the video, verifying that it was not rebuilt, to keep it from leaking. I know it's going to leak, so I'm wholly prepared. I just wish I had some more of that pig mat, but I've used it all, because that would be perfect for the amount of fluid that could be left inside of this from the residual of the clutches. That pig mat would be perfect. Lord. There she comes. See? Even though I had drained that previously, look at how much fluid has seeped out of there. Now I do have cardboard on the table underneath, and I'm going to put my catch pan under there just to be safe too. Here is an interesting anomaly that I don't recall ever seeing in the videos so far on YouTube about rebuilding my Turbo 400. This is generally your kick down solenoid that allows you to kick down, or makes the transmission kick down, but I've never seen one that also had this white wire that ran over to this valve, unless I'm just totally blanking out on what I've seen in those videos. This looks different to me than what I expected. I don't know. Let's find out where we're at and if we're messing something up. I just walked over and took a glance at my 1969 Turbo 400 valve body, and it is not set up with this screw-in valve. So now I'm wondering, could this be one of those switch pitch Turbo 400s that everybody talks so highly about? I don't know. It just seems weird that it's got this extra. I'm gonna have to look that up, find out what the heck's going on. This is the bolt for your screen, which I did not have in there. But one thing you can look at to see if your transmission has ever been rebuilt with a kit to allow you to control first gear, because the Turbo 400s from the factory have a 1-2 shift override. This little hole normally will be plugged with either a set screw, a frost type plug, or one of the balls from your valve body. Normally that will be plugged solid if it's got the type of shift kit that either gives you manual control, full manual valve body, or manual control 1 to 2. I'm gonna get ready to zip out all the 1/2-inch valve body bolts, and there is a couple of smaller than 1/2-inch bolts you have to pull out. But let's see if we can get that done. Good sign, good update so far. Drop the valve body off, and it does have Trans-Tech valve body to case gaskets. You can see it says VB. I don't know if you can see it with the reflection. Valve body to case gaskets. It's got this gold separator plate, which is non-factory, I believe. So this transmission at least has been rebuilt since 1971, which is a big bonus for me. So hopefully it's not going to take me an arm and a leg to get it up and ready to put in the Blazer project. But let's keep digging a little deeper, see how many check balls we can find. Quick little look inside this cover. Maybe you can see where I rubbed the clutch material out of the bottom of it. She had some miles on her. Good thing I'm rebuilding her. Whatever type of shift kit it had, it appears to have 3 check balls. 1, 2, 3. That's it.